Hey, I'm Emma Carter, 27 years old, and I've spent my whole life being the invisible kid in my family. Picture this. It's a chilly night in Maplewood, Oregon, and I'm standing outside my family's farmhouse, heart pounding, as I overhear the words that shattered everything I thought I knew. My parents, Robert and Susan, are inside, their voices low but crystal clear. Madison deserves it all. Every acre of Carter's orchard, every penny of the $2 million. Emma? She's just a schoolteacher. She wouldn't know what to do with it. Just a schoolteacher. Those words hit like a punch to the gut. I've poured my soul into teaching kids, but to them, I'm nothing compared to my sister Madison, the hotshot lawyer who can do no wrong. I was invited to this so-called family meeting at the farmhouse thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd finally get a shred of respect. Instead, I'm hiding in the dark, listening to my own family write me off. But that night something else happened, something that turned my world upside down. I stumbled on a secret my grandma Eleanor had been keeping, one that would make my parents and Madison regret every word they said. What was it? Stick with me because this story's about to get wild. Have you ever felt like your family saw right through you? Like no matter how hard you try, you're never enough? Hit that like button if you've been there, and subscribe to find out how one secret changed everything. I'm Emma, and this is the story of how I went from being the forgotten daughter to the one who held all the cards. You won't believe what Grandma's secret revealed, or how it brought my family to their knees. Keep watching, trust me, you don't want to miss this. You just heard me standing outside that farmhouse in Maplewood, Oregon, my heart breaking as my parents dismissed me as just a schoolteacher. Ready to hand everything, Carter's orchard, $2 million, our family's legacy, to my sister Madison. I'm Emma Carter, and that night I thought I'd hit rock bottom. But what I didn't know was that Grandma Eleanor, the heart of our family, had a secret that would change everything. Before I dive into that, let me take you back to how I ended up feeling like a stranger in my own family. Trust me, it's a story that'll make your blood boil. But it's also why Grandma's secret hit so hard. Growing up in Maplewood, a small town where everyone knows your name, our family was the kind of middle-class folks who worked hard and took pride in Carter's orchard. That 50-acre spread of apple trees wasn't just a business. It was our history, built by Grandma Eleanor's sweat and love. But from the time I was a kid, it was clear my parents, Robert and Susan, only had eyes for Madison. She's 31 now, a fancy lawyer in Portland, and back then she was the golden child. When she won a high school debate trophy, Mom and Dad threw a backyard barbecue that had half the town talking. Me? I was 9 when I won the state spelling bee, and they didn't even show up because Madison had a dance recital. That's nice, Emma, Mom would say, barely looking up from her coffee when I brought home straight A's. But could you keep it down? Madison's practicing her closing arguments. Madison soaked it up, always flashing that perfect smile, knowing she was the star. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, building forts in the orchard with Grandma Eleanor. She'd sit with me under the apple trees, her hands rough from years of work, and say, "Emma, you've got a heart of gold. That's worth more than all the money in Oregon." Those moments with Grandma kept me going, even when Dad called Madison our future CEO. While I was stuck setting the dinner table, I dream of making a difference, maybe as a teacher, but my parents? They'd roll their eyes. Teaching's noble, Emma, but it won't pay the bills like Madison's law firm. By 27, I was teaching 3rd grade at Maplewood Elementary, living in a 1-bedroom apartment, barely scraping by on $35,000 a year. I loved my kids, loved seeing their faces light up when they got a math problem right, but it didn't matter to my family. Madison, with her 6-figure salary and sleek condo, was their pride and joy. She'd breeze into town, tossing her designer purse on the counter, bragging about her latest courtroom win. "You should visit Portland, Emma," she'd say, smirking. "Maybe you'd aim higher than grading papers." Every word was a jab, and Mom and Dad ate it up, nodding like she was preaching gospel. So when I got the call to come to the farmhouse for a family meeting, I hoped, foolishly, it might be a chance to finally be seen. But standing there, overhearing their plan to give Madison everything, I realized nothing had changed. Or so I thought. What I found in Grandma's room that night would turn our family upside down. Have you ever felt like you're fighting for a place in your own story? Drop a comment if you have, and stick around, because Grandma's secret is about to blow the lid off everything. That night at Carter's orchard in Maplewood, Oregon, I stood frozen outside the farmhouse, my parents' words echoing in my head. Madison deserved everything, 50 acres, $2 million, while I was just a schoolteacher who'd never measure up. Their dismissal stung worse than any childhood slight, but Grandma Eleanor's belief in my heart of gold kept me grounded. I thought I'd heard the worst, but stepping into that family meeting showed me how deep the divide really ran. The tension in that house was like a storm brewing, and Madison's smug attitude pushed me to the edge. Let me take you inside, where every word felt like a jab, and a fleeting moment with Grandma hinted at something bigger. Pulling into the gravel driveway of Carter's Orchard, my old Honda rattling after the 5-mile drive from my apartment, I clung to a sliver of hope. Maybe this meeting would be different. The farmhouse, with its peeling red paint and memories of summer lemonade with Grandma, used to feel like home. But now, seeing Madison's gleaming BMW next to my parents' SUV, I felt like an outsider. Inside, the smell of apple pie clashed with the cold vibes. Aunt Laura gave me a quick, nervous hug, her eyes avoiding mine. Uncle David just nodded over his coffee, keeping his distance. The air was heavy, like everyone knew something I didn't. Then Madison strutted in, her heels clicking, her designer blazer screaming money. "Oh, Emma, you actually showed up," she said, her smile dripping with sarcasm. "Still wearing that old sweater? So you." Her words hit like a slap, but I bit my tongue. "Nice to see you, Madison," I muttered, gripping my frayed purse. She smirked, turning to Mom and Dad, who lit up like she was a celebrity. "Madison, tell us about your latest case," Dad said, practically beaming. They hung on her every word as she bragged about outsmarting some big-shot client, while I stood there, fading into the wallpaper, just like when we were kids and they'd skip my spelling bees for her debate tournaments. I found Grandma Eleanor in the living room, her frail frame sunk into the couch, but her eyes still sharp at 82. She patted the seat beside her, and I sat, her warmth easing the knot in my chest. "You being here matters more than you know," she said, her voice soft but steady, her hand squeezing mine. But then I caught her glancing at a locked drawer in the side table, her face tightening with worry. What was in there? Before I could ask, Mom called us to dinner, where Madison took center stage, boasting about her 6-figure bonuses while Dad nodded like she was rewriting the Constitution. "Emma, how's teaching?" Aunt Laura asked, trying to include me. "It's great," I started, but Mom cut in. "Madison, tell us more about Portland." My words dissolved unnoticed. As dinner dragged on, Madison's smug grin and my parents' blind adoration made my skin crawl. Grandma's worried glance at that drawer stuck with me, like a puzzle piece I couldn't place. Something was coming, something big. And when I went upstairs to grab her medicine later that night, what I found would turn our family upside down. Ever felt like your family's written you off? Drop a comment and stick with me, because what I discovered in Grandma's room is gonna shock you. I left you in the thick of that tense family meeting at Carter's Orchard in Maplewood, Oregon, where my parents' words still burned in my ears. Madison was their golden child, destined to inherit 50 acres and $2 million, while I was just a schoolteacher who didn't matter. Madison's sharp jabs and my parents' blind adoration at dinner made me feel like I was disappearing, but Grandma Eleanor's warm hand and that strange, worried glance at her locked drawer hinted at something bigger. I couldn't shake the feeling that this night was about to change everything. As I slipped upstairs to grab Grandma's medicine, I stumbled onto a secret that hit me like a freight train, one that would flip my family's world upside down. Let me take you into that moment, where shock and betrayal collided, and a single piece of paper made me question everything I thought I knew about my place in this family. Dinner had left me raw, Madison's smug grin and my parents' dismissal replaying in my head like a bad song. I needed air, but Grandma asked me to fetch her heart pills from her bedroom, so I climbed the creaky stairs to the second floor. Her room was a time capsule, floral wallpaper, a quilt she'd sewn herself, and that old oak side table with the locked drawer I'd noticed earlier. I found the pills on her nightstand, but as I turned to leave, my elbow brushed a book off the table. It fell open, revealing a small brass key taped inside. My heart raced. I knew I shouldn't, but something, maybe Grandma's worried look, told me to check that drawer. With trembling hands, I unlocked it and found a single envelope, yellowed with age, addressed to me in Grandma's neat handwriting. I tore it open, my breath catching as I read the words. "Emma, you're the only one who understands the true value of Carter's Orchard. This land, this legacy belongs to you. I've known for years that you'd protect its heart, our community, our roots. The orchard and $3 million are yours, not Madison's. I've kept this quiet to protect you, but the time is coming. Be strong. $3 million? Me? I sank onto the bed, the letter shaking in my hands. Grandma had been planning this for years, seeing something in me that my parents never did. But why hide it? Why now? My mind spun with questions and a wave of guilt hit me for snooping. Had I betrayed her trust? Yet the words "be strong" felt like a lifeline, pulling me back from the pain of my parents' rejection. I stuffed the letter back in the envelope, my pulse pounding, and slipped it into my pocket. I needed to talk to Grandma, but as I headed downstairs, I heard voices from the kitchen, low, urgent, and unmistakable. It was Mom, Dad, and Madison huddled around the table, thinking everyone else was asleep. I froze in the hallway just out of sight as their words sliced through me. Madison's the only one who can handle the orchard, Dad said, his voice firm. She's got the brains to turn it into a real business. Resorts, condos, the works. Emma's sweet, but she's not cut out for this. Teaching's her lane. Mom chimed in, her tone sharp. Exactly. Emma would probably give it all away to her students. We can't let her ruin our legacy. Madison laughed, cold and cutting. Ruin it? She'd turn the orchard into a playground. I'll make us millions, Dad. You know I'm the right choice. I pressed my back against the wall, my chest tight. They weren't just giving Madison everything. They were erasing me, mocking the life I'd chosen. Teaching wasn't just a job. It was my way of giving back, shaping kids who'd grow up in Maplewood like I did. But to them it was a joke. The letter in my pocket burned, Grandma's words clashing with their betrayal. $3 million wasn't the shock. It was the fact that Grandma saw me when no one else did. But what did she mean by "the time is coming"? Was she planning to tell them? And why hadn't she yet? I wanted to barge in, wave the letter in their faces, but fear stopped me. What if they turned on Grandma? Her health was failing. She didn't need their wrath. I crept back upstairs, my mind a mess. The letter was proof I wasn't invisible, but it also meant a fight I wasn't sure I was ready for. Madison's laugh echoed in my head, and I pictured her bulldozing the orchard for some soulless resort, destroying the place where I'd built forts and dreamed with Grandma. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, clutching the envelope, tears stinging my eyes. I wasn't angry just for me. It was for Grandma, for the orchard, for every kid in Maplewood who'd lose a piece of their home if Madison got her way. But could I really stand up to them? Me, the quiet one, against their money and power? As I lay awake, the farmhouse creaking around me, I kept rereading Grandma's words. Be strong. They felt like a challenge, a call to step up, but I didn't know how. The meeting was set for tomorrow, and I had a sinking feeling it would be the moment everything came to a head. What was Grandma planning? And what would Madison do when she found out? I couldn't shake the dread, or the tiny spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could prove them wrong. Have you ever found something that made you rethink your whole life? Hit that like button if you've been there, and drop a comment with your story. Keep watching, because what happened at that meeting will leave you speechless. The secret in Grandma's letter was just the beginning, and the truth was about to tear my family apart. I left you clutching Grandma Eleanor's secret letter in that creaky farmhouse in Maplewood, Oregon, my heart pounding after overhearing my parents and Madison plot to hand her everything. 50 acres of Carter's orchard and $2 million, while dismissing me as a nobody schoolteacher. That letter, tucked in my pocket, was a bombshell. Grandma wanted me to inherit the orchard and $3 million, believing I'd protect its heart. But their words in the kitchen, calling my teaching a joke, planning to turn our family's legacy into condos, cut deeper than ever. I barely slept, torn between shock, guilt for snooping, and a growing fire to prove them wrong. The next morning, as the family gathered for the big meeting, I braced for a showdown. Let me take you into that room, where my parents' announcement pushed me to the brink, and the sting of their betrayal set the stage for Grandma's secret to explode. Saturday dawned bright, the kind of crisp Oregon morning that usually made the orchard glow. But inside the farmhouse, the air was thick with tension. I'd slipped the letter back into Grandma's drawer before dawn, too scared to confront anyone yet. My hands shook as I poured coffee in the dining room, where Aunt Laura and Uncle David murmured about the weather, avoiding my eyes. Madison strutted in, her designer scarf a stark contrast to my faded jeans, and shot me a smirk. Sleep well, Emma? Or were you up grading papers? she teased, her voice dripping with mockery. I forced a tight smile, my stomach churning. Mom and Dad bustled in, all business, their faces lit with a smug confidence that made me dread what was coming. We gathered in the living room, the same one where Grandma and I used to read by the fireplace. She was there now, frail in her armchair, her sharp eyes scanning the room. I sat nearby, trying to catch her gaze, but she looked distant, like she was steeling herself. Dad cleared his throat, standing tall like he was addressing a boardroom. Susan and I have been talking, he began, his voice booming. Carter's Orchard is our family's pride. 50 acres of history and $2 million in assets. It needs someone with vision to take it forward. He paused, locking eyes with Madison, who practically glowed. That's why we're transferring the orchard and the full estate to Madison, effective next month. She'll turn it into a world-class resort, a legacy we can all be proud of. The room went silent, but my heart roared. Madison leaned forward, her smile triumphant. I'm honored, she said, her voice smooth as silk. I'll make Carter's Orchard a name people know from Portland to New York. Mom clapped her hands, beaming. It's the right choice. Madison's proven she can handle big things. I felt like I'd been slapped. The orchard wasn't just land. It was where I'd learned to climb trees, where Grandma taught me to love Maplewood's people. And they were handing it to someone who'd pave it over for profit. I looked at Grandma, hoping for a sign, but she stared straight ahead, her hands clenched. Dad turned to me, almost as an afterthought. Emma, we know you're happy teaching. You don't need the stress of managing this. We'll set aside a little something for you. Maybe $10,000 to help with your apartment. $10,000? A crumb tossed to keep me quiet. Madison chuckled, not even hiding it. Yeah, Emma, stick to your chalkboards. This is big league stuff. Aunt Laura shifted uncomfortably, and Uncle David coughed, but no one spoke up. I gripped the armrest, my nails digging in, fighting back tears. Teaching wasn't a fallback. It was my calling, shaping kids who'd grow up in this town. But to them I was a failure, unworthy of the legacy Grandma had built. I wanted to scream, to pull out the letter and shove it in their faces, but fear glued me to my seat. What if they turned on Grandma? Her health was fragile. I'd seen her wince just climbing the stairs. And what if I was wrong about the letter? Maybe it was old, a draft, not real. But those words, Emma, you're the only one, burned in my mind, clashing with Madison's smirk and my parents' cold dismissal. I felt like I was drowning, the room closing in, their voices a blur. Madison's already got investors lined up. Mom was saying, her excitement grating. She'll put Maplewood on the map. Maplewood didn't need to be on a map. It needed its heart, its community, not some soulless resort. I glanced at Grandma again, and this time our eyes met. There was a fire in her gaze, a silent promise that made my breath catch. She knew. She'd always known. But why was she waiting? Was she testing me, seeing if I'd fight? My hands trembled, the weight of her secret pressing down. I couldn't let Madison destroy the orchard, not after Grandma's faith in me. But standing up meant facing a family that had never seen me, not really. The letter said be strong, but I felt anything but. Still, something was shifting inside me. A spark of defiance, fueled by years of being overlooked. As Dad droned on about Madison's vision, I realized this meeting wasn't just about money. It was about who we were as a family, what we valued. Madison's resort would erase everything Grandma stood for. The orchard's free apple-picking days for kids, the summer fairs that brought Maplewood together. I couldn't let that happen, but I didn't know how to stop it. Not yet. Grandma's silence was deafening, but her eyes told me to hold on. Something was coming, something that would shake this family to its core. Have you ever been counted out by the people who should love you most? Drop a comment with your story, and hit that like button if you're rooting for me. Keep watching, because what Grandma did next will leave you stunned. The truth behind that letter is about to turn this meeting into a battleground. I left you in the suffocating tension of that living room at Carter's Orchard in Maplewood, Oregon, where my parents had just dropped a bomb. They were handing 50 acres and $2 million to my sister Madison to turn our family's legacy into a glitzy resort, while tossing me a measly $10,000 like a consolation prize. Their words, calling my teaching a dead end, praising Madison's vision, felt like a betrayal of everything I'd ever known. Grandma Eleanor's secret letter, hidden in my heart, said I was meant to inherit $3 million and the orchard, but her silence during their announcement left me reeling. I was drowning in doubt, torn between fear and a flicker of defiance, when Grandma's sharp gaze met mine, promising something big. Let me take you into the moment that changed everything. When Grandma stood up and unleashed a truth that shook my family to its core, leaving us all stunned and me fighting tears of vindication. The living room was a pressure cooker, Madison's smug smile practically glowing as Mom and Dad basked in her glory. Aunt Laura fidgeted, Uncle David stared at his coffee, and I gripped my chair, the sting of being dismissed as just a schoolteacher burning hot. Dad was mid-sentence, raving about Madison's plans for condos, when Grandma Eleanor cleared her throat. The sound was soft but cut through the room like a blade. Every head turned. At 82, she looked frail, her hands trembling as she gripped her cane. But when she pushed herself to stand, a fire blazed in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Enough, she said, her voice low but commanding, stopping Dad cold. Madison's smile faltered, and Mom's hand froze on her coffee mug. Robert, Susan, you've had your say. Grandma began, her gaze sweeping the room. But you've forgotten what this orchard stands for. It's not just land or money. It's our heart, our community, the soul of Maplewood. And you're ready to hand it to someone who'd tear it apart for profit. Her words landed like thunder, and I saw Madison shift, her confidence cracking. Dad started to interrupt. Mom, Madison's the best choice. But Grandma raised a hand, silencing him. I've watched you both raise these girls, she said, her voice gaining strength. And I've watched Madison build her career. But I've also seen how she's done it. Lying to clients, bullying colleagues, burying complaints to climb the ladder. I hired a private investigator 2 years ago. I know everything. The room gasped. Madison's face drained of color, her mouth opening but no words coming out. Mom sputtered, Eleanor, that's outrageous. But Grandma didn't flinch. Outrageous is letting greed destroy what I built, she shot back. Madison, you forged documents to win that big case last year. You threatened a junior lawyer with blackmail to get her research. You think I don't know? I've got proof, and so does my lawyer. Madison shrank in her seat, her usual poise gone, and I felt a mix of shock and grim satisfaction. Grandma had been watching all this time, while Madison thought she was untouchable. Then Grandma turned to me, her eyes softening but fierce. Emma, you've spent your life giving, teaching kids, volunteering at the community center, never asking for anything. You love this orchard for what it is, not what it could make you. That's why 3 years ago I rewrote my will. The orchard, $3 million, everything. It's yours. My breath caught, tears welling up as her words sank in. $3 million. The orchard. Me. The room erupted in chaos. Mom leapt to her feet. You can't do this. Madison's worked for this. Dad's face was red. This is insane, Mom. Emma's not equipped. Madison found her voice venomous. You're senile, Grandma. Emma's a nobody. Grandma didn't waver. A nobody, she said, her voice like steel. Emma's the only one here who's never lied to me, never hurt others to get ahead. She's the only one I trust to keep Carter's Orchard a place for Maplewoods people, not a playground for the rich. She reached into her sweater, pulling out a sealed envelope, another copy of the letter I'd found, and handed it to me. My hand shook as I took it, tears spilling down my cheeks. Open it, Emma, she said gently. Inside was the same promise. The orchard, $3 million, and a note in her handwriting. You're my pride always. I couldn't speak, overwhelmed by her faith, by being seen after a lifetime of being invisible. Madison lunged forward, snatching at the envelope. This is a trick. She's manipulated you. Aunt Laura grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Sit down, Madison, Laura snapped, her voice sharp for the first time. Uncle David finally spoke, his tone grim. Eleanor's right. I've seen your deals, Madison. You're no saint. The room turned against her, and for once Madison had no comeback. Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. This isn't fair to Madison. Dad stormed toward Grandma. You're tearing this family apart. But Grandma stood her ground, cane planted firmly. No, Robert. You did that when you chose greed over love. I clutched the letter, my heart racing. Grandma's words were a lifeline, but they also thrust me into a war I hadn't asked for. Madison's glare burned into me, promising revenge. My parents' betrayal stung, but Grandma's faith felt like armor. I wiped my tears, meeting her gaze, and saw a nod of encouragement. She was counting on me and I couldn't let her down. But what would Madison do now? And how could I face a family that saw me as the enemy? The meeting wasn't over, and the real fight was just beginning. Have you ever had someone believe in you when no one else did? Drop a comment with your story, and hit that like button if you're cheering for Grandma's stand. Keep watching because what happened next will blow your mind. Madison's not done, and the truth is about to get even uglier. I left you in the chaos of that living room at Carter's Orchard in Maplewood, Oregon, where Grandma Eleanor dropped a bombshell. She was giving me the 50-acre orchard and $3 million, not Madison, because I was the only one who'd protect its heart. Her words, backed by a secret letter and proof of Madison's shady deals, turned my parents' smug announcement, handing everything to Madison for a fancy resort, into a humiliating defeat. Madison's venomous accusations and my parents' outrage filled the room with a storm of betrayal, but Grandma's faith in me was a lifeline, even as I trembled under the weight of it all. Now, with the letter in my hands and my family's glares burning into me, I had to decide. Would I step up or crumble? Let me take you into the aftermath, where I faced a choice that would define me, and my family's wrath pushed me to the edge of everything I thought I could handle. The living room was a battlefield, the air thick with shock and anger. Madison's face was a mask of fury, her fists clenched as she hissed. "You've been playing the victim all along, haven't you? Sucking up to Grandma for this." Her words stung, but I held the letter tighter, Grandma's handwriting grounding me. "I didn't ask for this, Madison," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I didn't even know until last night." Mom, tears streaking her face, jumped in, her voice shrill. "Emma, how could you let this happen? You're tearing us apart." Dad's glare was colder, his words like ice. "You're not ready for this, Emma. You're a teacher, not a leader. Give it back to Madison before you ruin everything." Their words hit like punches, each one trying to shove me back into the box they'd always kept me in. The quiet, invisible daughter who'd never measure up. But Grandma's eyes, steady and fierce, held me up. She leaned on her cane, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Emma's ready because she's honest, because she cares about Maplewood, not just money. You've all forgotten what this orchard means." Aunt Laura nodded, her voice soft but clear. "Eleanor's right. Emma's always been the one helping this town, volunteering, teaching. Madison, you've never even set foot in the community center." Uncle David, usually silent, added, "I've seen your contracts, Madison. Shady doesn't begin to cover it." The support was a shock, but Madison wasn't done. She spun on me, her voice venomous. "You think you can run this place? You'll crash and burn, and I'll be there to pick up the pieces." She stormed toward the door, pausing to spit. "This isn't over, Emma." Mom followed, sobbing, while Dad threw one last barb. "You're making a mistake and we won't clean up your mess." The door slammed, leaving a ringing silence. I sank into a chair, the letter crumpled in my hands, tears spilling over. Grandma sat beside me, her hand on mine. "They're scared," she said softly. "Scared of losing control. But you, Emma, you've got the strength to do this right." Strength? I didn't feel strong. $3 million and 50 acres were a world I didn't know, a responsibility that felt like a mountain. Teaching third graders was my comfort zone, not managing a legacy. But Grandma's letter burned in my mind. Protect its heart, our community, our roots. I thought of the orchard summer fairs, kids running through the trees, families picking apples for free. That was worth fighting for. What do I do now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Grandma smiled, weary but proud. "You start by believing in yourself. I've got a lawyer, Mr. Thompson, who'll help. The will's ironclad. But you'll need to stand tall because they're coming for you." She wasn't wrong. As the family scattered, some to their cars, others to whisper in corners, I felt the weight of their anger. Madison's threat echoed. This isn't over. I knew she'd fight dirty, maybe dig up dirt or twist the truth to make me look unfit. My parents' betrayal hurt worse, their belief that I'd ruin everything, a knife in my gut. But Grandma's faith and the quiet nods from Laura and David gave me a spark of courage. I stood, wiping my tears, and said, "I'll do it, Grandma. I'll protect the orchard." Her eyes sparkled with tears. "I knew you would," she said. "You're my girl." The rest of the day was a blur. Grandma called Mr. Thompson, a gruff lawyer from town, who arrived with a stack of papers. "Eleanor's will is airtight. he said, adjusting his glasses. $3 million, the orchard all yours, Emma. But Madison's got connections. Expect a legal fight. I nodded, my stomach twisting. A fight was coming, and I was no lawyer, no hotshot like Madison. But I had something she didn't. A reason bigger than money. I wanted the orchard to stay a place for Maplewood's kids, not a resort for strangers. I spent the night in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. Could I turn the orchard into a community hub, like I dreamed? Classes, markets, spaces for families? The idea felt right but terrifying. As dawn broke, I knew I'd crossed a line. Accepting Grandma's gift meant war with my family, maybe forever. Madison's glare, Mom's sobs, Dad's cold dismissal, they'd haunt me. But I couldn't back down, not when Grandma believed I could do this. The orchard wasn't just land. It was a promise to Maplewood, to every kid I taught, to myself. What would Madison do next? And could I really stand up to her? The battle was just starting, and I was scared, but I wasn't alone. Have you ever had to fight for what's right even when it hurts? Drop a comment with your story, and hit that like button if you're with me. Keep watching, because Madison's next move is going to shake everything. And I'm not backing down. I left you in the aftermath of that explosive meeting at Carter's Orchard in Maplewood, Oregon, where Grandma Eleanor named me the heir to 50 acres and $3 million, shattering my parents' plan to hand everything to Madison. Her revelation, backed by proof of Madison's deceit, left my sister humiliated, my parents furious, and me trembling under the weight of a legacy I never expected. Madison's threat. "This isn't over," echoed as she stormed out with Mom and Dad, vowing to fight me. Grandma's faith and support from Aunt Laura and Uncle David gave me courage, but I was scared. Accepting this meant war with my family. Now, with Mr. Thompson's legal papers in hand, I had to step up and turn the orchard into something worthy of Grandma's trust. Let me take you into the battle that followed, where Madison's attacks tested my resolve, but Maplewood's heart showed me I wasn't alone. The days after the meeting were a whirlwind. I stayed at the farmhouse, poring over Grandma's vision with Mr. Thompson, a no-nonsense lawyer who'd known her for 30 years. "You've got the deed and $3 million, he said. "But Madison's got lawyers in spite. Brace yourself." I nodded, my stomach in knots. My dream was to turn Carter's Orchard into Carter's Community Hub, free classes, a farmer's market, a playground for kids, but I barely knew where to start. Teaching third graders didn't prepare me for this. Still, Grandma's words, "protect its heart," drove me. I sketched plans late into the night, imagining families gathering where apple trees bloomed. Madison didn't waste time. By Monday, a local paper ran a story. Maplewood teacher snatches family fortune. It painted me as a schemer who'd manipulated Grandma. Quoting an anonymous source, I knew was Madison. My phone buzzed with texts from old classmates, some supportive, others nasty. "Greedy much, Emma?" At school, parents whispered as I walked by, and one even pulled her kid from my class. I felt like a punching bag, each hit chipping away at my confidence. Madison wasn't just fighting for the orchard. She was trying to ruin me. I called Mr. Thompson, voice shaking. "Can she do this?" He sighed. "She can try. Stay focused. The will's solid." I threw myself into the hub, meeting with local farmers and teachers to plan. Their support surprised me. Mrs. Jenkins, who ran the bakery, offered to host a market stall. Mr. Lopez, my principal, promised classroom space for after-school programs. "Maplewood needs this," he said. "Your grandma would be proud." Their words kept me going, but Madison upped the ante. She convinced two investors, friends of Dad's, to pull $20,000 from a community grant I'd applied for. Without it, my playground plan stalled. I sat in the orchard, staring at the trees, feeling like I'd already failed. Had Grandma been wrong about me? Then I got an idea. I'd fight Madison's lies with truth. I organized a town hall at the farmhouse, inviting everyone in Maplewood. Over 200 people showed up, crowding the barn. I stood on a hay bale, heart pounding, and told my story. Not the letter or Madison's dirt, but why I wanted the hub. "This orchard's for us," I said. "For your kids, your businesses, our home. I'm no tycoon, but I know Maplewood's heart." The crowd clapped, some in tears. A farmer yelled, "We're with you, Emma." By the end, they'd pledged $10,000 in donations and volunteer hours. Kids from my class ran up, hugging me, and I cried, feeling Grandma's spirit in their smiles. Madison's smear campaign faltered. The paper printed a retraction after Mr. Thompson threatened a lawsuit, and locals rallied, sharing my plans on social media. But I knew she wasn't done. Her silence was too loud. My parents hadn't spoken to me since the meeting, their absence a wound that wouldn't heal. Could I keep fighting without them? Grandma, weaker by the day, squeezed my hand. "You're doing it, Emma. Don't let their noise drown you out." Her faith was my anchor, but the road ahead was rocky. What was Madison planning next? And could I hold on? Ever fought for something against all odds? Drop a comment and hit like if you're rooting for Maplewood. Keep watching. Madison's next move is coming, and it's a doozy. I left you in the heart of Maplewood, Oregon, where I fought to turn Carter's Orchard into a community hub, despite Madison's vicious smear campaign. Her lies in the local paper and pulling $20,000 from my grant stung, but the town's support, 200 locals rallying at the barn, gave me strength. Grandma Eleanor's faith and her $3 million legacy pushed me to keep going, even as my parents' silence and Madison's threats loomed. Now, months later, something shifted. Let me take you into a moment that shocked me, where forgiveness and family took a new turn, and the orchard became more than a dream. Madison showed up at the farmhouse unannounced, her usual swagger gone. "I was wrong," she said, her voice low. "I tried to ruin you, but you're building something real. I want to help." I was stunned. Madison admitting fault? I let her join, assigning her legal work for the hub. She dove in, her skills sharpening our plans. Mom and Dad came to the hub's first event, a farmer's market buzzing with 50 families. "We're proud," Mom said, her eyes teary. "It wasn't perfect, but it was a start." I learned holding grudges hurt me more, so I forgave, not forgot. The hub thrived. Classes for kids, markets for locals, even tourists visiting. Madison's help and my parents' slow support showed me family could heal, even if scarred. Grandma smiled, weaker but proud. Could we keep this peace? Ever rebuilt a broken bond? Comment below, hit like if you believe in second chances. Keep watching. The hub's opening is next, and it's huge. I left you at Carter's Orchard in Maplewood, Oregon, where Madison's apology and my parents' tentative support marked a turning point. Their help, alongside 50 families at our farmers market, showed me the $3 million legacy Grandma Eleanor entrusted to me could heal wounds. Now, as Carter's community hub thrives, I want to share what I've learned and how you can carry it forward. This journey wasn't just about an orchard. It was about finding my worth, and it's a lesson for us all. Standing among the apple trees, watching kids play where I once did, I realized true value isn't in money or status, but in lifting others up. Grandma saw that in me when my family didn't, and her faith turned their betrayal, handing Madison everything, into my strength. My lesson? You're enough even if others overlook you. Start small, volunteer, smile at a stranger, teach a kid something new. These acts build legacies that outlast any fortune. The hub's opening is soon, with 100 locals joining us. Madison's pitching in and Mom and Dad are coming around, proof that forgiveness can rebuild what's broken. Grandma's weaker now, but her smile says it all. What's next for us? I'm not sure, but I'm ready. Have you found your worth despite doubters? Comment your story, hit like if this moved you, and subscribe for more. Madison's role in the hub's future is brewing. Stay tuned for that twist. Thanks for joining me. Let's build legacies one choice at a time.